All right, welcome to our final panel, our Turn Out the Lights session. Thank you for being here and your interest. I'm Alan Hawkins. I'm on the faculty here in the School of Family Life, and I'll moderate our panel this afternoon. Again, before we start, we'd like to encourage you to, we're a small group, come on up front, come up closer. In addition, before we get started, it's possible that you have some burning questions on your mind that you want our panelists to be addressing. And so let me just pause here for a second and let you think about that. And if you have sort of anything that you'd like to get out there that you're really hoping our panelists will address, why don't you raise your hand? Let's see if we can do so. If not, then okay. We'll proceed with our panelists. We'll have a few minutes after each panelist for you to ask some specific questions. And then when our four panelists have all presented, we'll open it up again to further questions that could be addressed specifically to a panelist or to all of them together. Our first panelist then will be Michelle Linford. She and her husband, Matt, are the grateful parents of three, your adjective, delightful daughters, right? Teenagers. She's passionate about the power of technology and the internet to do good. Michelle has a BS in psychology and an MBA with an emphasis in organizational behavior and change from Brigham Young University. I want to claim that too. I also have a master's degree in organizational behavior from BYU. She's been the executive director of Epic Deliberate Digital since spring of 2014. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you. I am excited to be here. I just wanted to read first what our objective was, what we were told our objective was for this panel. It says, please think about how your major contributed to your civic engagement. We want to make the point that civic engagement is not limited to particular majors, such as political science. Various majors can become paths to various means of civic engagement. And in fact, we were just having a conversation in the back that civic engagement really, the word civic can sometimes have a nuance of its own that means political activism. And I just want to make it very clear that the concept of civic engagement is very broad. It's really community engagement, community involvement, and so it can mean any number of things. So please keep that in mind. Before I tell you a little bit about myself, I just want to get to know a little bit about you. So I've made a list of the different colleges that are here, and if you just, whatever your major is, if you're undecided, then just raise your hand of what you think you might be interested in. Business, anybody in the business school? Yes. Education? Good, okay. Engineering? Awesome. Family, home, and social sciences? Okay, a little few more. Fine arts, communications. I'm hoping that we're gonna have some, oh, good group there. Humanities? Excellent. International studies? Great. Nursing? Oh, was there a hand? No? Maybe, okay. Physical and mathematical sciences? Yes, all right, wonderful. And religious education. So I don't know if you saw the variety, but that is the message I really want to leave with you, is that civic engagement is about this and variety and different perspectives coming together. So whatever your passion is, whatever your interests are, you can be part of a whole, part of a larger puzzle. And I would encourage you to always be aware of people outside of your particular sphere of expertise or focus, outside of your comfort zone. There's always much that can be done with people within expertises, if that's a word, but there is also so much that needs to be done. In the business world, they call it cross-functional work, multidisciplinary work. In the work that I do, we call it cross-sector work. Whatever words you may use, it is essential. Our social issues and the challenges that we face and the opportunities that are out there are very complex. And it's very easy to think about them in a very limited way. So remember, even though this is a small group, the variety that we saw. So that's one of the things I hope that you will leave with from what I have to say. I'm just going to share a little bit about myself. As was mentioned, I got a bachelor's in psychology. I had no idea what I wanted to do because I'm the type of person who loves to do a lot of things. The only major I ruled out was business, and then after my mission, I ended up getting a master's in it. So don't ever say never. Because we're at BYU, I will just say trust God and know that He will guide your process. I wish I had a chance to just talk to you one-on-one, because I would love to be able to tell you more of my experiences with that element of things. But trust your process. Enjoy the process. Even the ambiguity that you may feel can open up doors. I didn't think I would serve a mission. Never say never. After grad school, I got 2 degrees from BYU and graduated single. I didn't get a tuition refund or anything. Much to my chagrin, I moved to the East Coast and had a wonderful adventure out there, and I actually met my husband out there. He's from Salt Lake, I'm from Bountiful, so you just never know. There was not a single ward in New Jersey, the whole state. So, if I had made a decision logically, again, trust your process. One tiny little project that I worked in telecom. I was a business consultant, an operations consultant. And one tiny project that I learned HTML, which is a programming language. That skill set, or it was, I'm not that young, that small skill set was the foundation for most of my civic engagement. It was not my major. It was not my specific skill training in any large way. It was just that tiny skill set that said, oh, I can make a website. And at a point in my life, I was a stay-at-home mom for 15 years, and I felt driven to create a website to get some search engine recognition for the church about Mormon women. I wanted positive content out there, and I created a website. And that led to another website, which led to my job. And so that one tiny project that I did, learning HTML, opened up a door. If I were to describe my perfect job, I couldn't have picked a better job than what I'm doing. I work part-time from home in a sphere, this concept of collaborating in the community and trying to work to make things better is an absolute joy for me. And I didn't get my degree to do what I'm doing. This all unfolded. So that's another thing I hope that you will leave with is that trusting that process. The last point I want to leave with you, it can be very easy. This is related to what I talked about with the cross-sector or cross-functional or the multidisciplinary work. It can be really easy, especially when we're passionate about something, to get focused on one particular principle. So not just one particular expertise, but one principle. And with gospel living too, we can get really passionate about one principle. I want to share something from Neal A. Maxwell that I think is relevant to civic engagement. He's actually, in this article, he's talking about secularism versus spiritualism, and that's not the contrast I want to draw. I just wanted to pull out a principle so I'm going to replace civic engagement for secularism, and I don't see them as being parallel. I think civic engagement is a critical part of what it means to be a saint, to serve in our communities and have positive influence. So I'm going to say, well-meaning, heartfelt civic service often seizes upon a single true principle and elevates it above its peer principles. This act of isolation does not make the principle seized any less true, but it strips that principle of its supporting principles. One can be incarcerated within the prison of one principle. So elevating one correct principle to the plane of religion is poor policy. Just as one person makes a poor church, or one person or one mindset or one expertise makes a poor community, one principle makes a poor religion or poor policy. So there's a truth that we believe in, that all truth is part of a whole. So as you go out, whatever your passion is, just as you don't want your expertise to be the only thing you think of, don't let your one passion or don't let one principle overshadow the whole. Be a listener, be an observer, be somebody who can take a step back and see the system and take the time to absorb the pieces of the system, of the whole, so that then you can take your skills and bring it to a part of the whole so that you can work together in a council system as a team with other people. And that is the way that real change can happen. Thank you.
So, any questions for Michelle?
Yes. The question is if I learned HTML on my own or if it was part of my education. It was not part of my formal education. It was something I needed to do for a project at work, but I taught myself. I got a binder and I started, looking up tutorials, and I just taught myself basically. Just enough that I could, I can't program a whole website, but just enough to know how to be able to deal with the code with a WordPress site or something like that. So, good question. Sure. The question is if I would tell a little bit more about my current job. I'd love to. Epic Deliberate Digital was created specifically and really wholly for the need. Okay. I'm not explaining this very well. Everyone knows that there's a need for collaboration. EPIC was created to facilitate collaboration. That's our whole mission around the issue of kids and technology. So technology is taking off, and we're all behind the 8 ball. And we wanted to help bring people together from different sectors with different perspectives and different lenses to work together around the issue of kids and tech, to help parents, to help schools, and to bring the youth into the conversation, because so often adults are talking to and doing things to and trying to control and monitor, but not getting the input from the youth. And they're the ones in the technical world, the digital natives, if you will. So we're trying to bring all those voices together. Currently, we're working with Salt Lake City and Google Fiber to help them with their digital inclusion plans. So that's one of the specific projects that we're working on. Any other questions, or is that time up? Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you. Our next panelist is Jackie Skinner. Upon completing her bachelor's in social science teaching from BYU, Jackie Skinner taught social studies at Timpview High School, garnering the Golden Apple Teacher of the Year award. That sounds pretty impressive. Golden Apple Teacher of the Year. She served as the Uganda Country Director for Help International, where she led 29 university students in creating self-sustaining development projects in rural villages. Ms. Skinner has since worked in Washington, D.C. for the United States Agency for International Development in Foreign Disaster Assistance. And she currently runs an organization called Goals for Girls. Jackie.
I'm going to come up here because I have a presentation, but it's so fun. Actually, my work in DC, one of my colleagues showed up, Christina. She also worked for the government's disaster relief program with me, so that's kind of fun. But anyway, yeah, my name's Jackie Skinner. I run an organization called Goals for Girls, and today I'm just going to be talking to you what we are assigned to talk about, which was kind of talking about our trajectory and how our major at BYU did kind of lead us to where we are right now. But in addition, an additional intention that I have is just to convey the message that as you guys are in your undergrad or wherever you're at in life, and you're seeing within your school, your community, your church, your state, your world, things that need to change, needs that exist and things that can be improved. And as you have big, lofty ideas and a burning heart, go for it. Just go. So with that, I was a social science teaching major here at BYU, and sometimes I get the time ahead of me, so I'm going to track my time. I was a social science teaching major here, and I also had a minor in international development. And during my undergrad, I had a really awesome opportunity to travel to Uganda with two BYU professors. They're Julie and David Height. They're in the Ed Leadership Department. I traveled with them to Uganda to research what resources were resulting in better test scores. So to try to find a correlation between the two so that then schools can focus on, a chalkboard is more productive than having an actual desk because the test scores will be better. So we went to various, tons and tons of schools, and I was 19 at the time, and I became just buddies with the girls at the schools. And I remember one specific instance where a girl sat me down and said, okay, so what's this research you guys are doing? And I explained it, and she said, you guys are only capturing part of the story for us girls. A lot of our challenges have nothing to do with resources and everything to do with being a girl. And as she was telling me some of these stories, I started having that burning heart that I call, and just really wrestling with the reality that they were facing. And I had a couple sleepless nights thinking, I think I need to do something. I think I need to be a voice of some sorts for these girls. And I had kind of a lofty, what at the time was kind of a ridiculous idea, but I had the idea of trying to get excused from the current research that I was doing and to branch off and do my own, focus on struggles girls are facing in secondary school. So I presented this big, lofty idea with this pounding heart to these professors and told them about my passion to be a voice for these girls. And they said, you got it, you are excused, go for it. And they just, circled their support around me. So I did do that, and it was an incredible experience, but it was from that experience, it stood with me until now, and will continue. Anyway, I graduated BYU. I started teaching at Timpview High School, which is right down the road. I was the head soccer coach there and taught world geography and world civilizations, and I loved it. I love working with teenagers. And during my first year of teaching, an opportunity was presented to go work back in Uganda with Help International. And the programming for Help International wasn't really specific to working with these girls. We had so many projects, but that's what pulled my heart out there. But it was a lofty idea. I was a first-year teacher, and I needed to go for 4 months, which meant that I needed to take a month off of school my first year teaching. That's a completely ridiculous idea at the time. I went to my principal, and again, with that burning heart, just said, hey, there's this opportunity. I feel like it can make me a better teacher. I feel like I feel like I can really do well in this position, and I want your support if you give it to me, but I understand if you can't because I'm a first-year teacher. And he said, go. And he gave me so much support, and I went. He just said, the only condition is that you come back and you become that teacher. So I went to Uganda, and that's that middle picture down there. While I was in Uganda, the thing that I loved most was volunteering for the soccer league that was using sport as a way to re-socialize war-affected kids back into society. So there had been a 20-year war in northern Uganda, and a lot of the really hard stuff, child soldiers, sex slaves, just real hard stuff. When the war was done, the soccer league was set up to just kind of reintegrate them, get them a different non-war associated identity with them. I was sitting on the sideline watching these girls play soccer, and again, with this passion within me, these girls that are coming from these vulnerable areas. And the man on the right, his name is Trevor Dudley. He was the director of the organization, the soccer league, and he had said, Jackie, my dream is to bring an American girls soccer team to northern Uganda. I want to show these girls their potential. And that, I was thinking about that, and his intention for that phrase was, I want to show them playing potential. Sometimes in sports, if you aren't shown what you can achieve, sometimes you don't know that you can work that hard to achieve it. But when he said those words, my mind went back to my Timpview High School girls soccer players and thinking, man, they have so much potential. They have the whole world at their fingertips, and I want them to realize the ability they have within their life to do something very impactful, no matter what form that comes in. So, lofty idea, again, with that pounding heart. I think I really want to bring my girls' soccer team to northern Uganda to work with these war-affected girls. I came back to Utah, pitched the idea to the girls and the parents, and they offered all the support in the world, and we went. And it was magical, to say the least. I don't even have the words to explain the dialogue that unfolded between these two groups of girls. And our programming was focused around goal setting and leadership. And while I was there, I was like, oh, we're on to something. So, kind of long story short, from that time, I now run Goals for Girls. I've taken girls' soccer teams here in the U.S. to various parts of the world. And what Goals for Girls is, we have international programming and domestic programming. And so in our international programming, there's 3 things that we do. Number 1, before I intro this, we team up with former members of the women's U.S. national team, the ones that are retired and they're just wanting something to dive into. So we grab these really influential players, and we take a group of U.S. girls and we connect them to a group of girls from a really vulnerable area somewhere in the world. And for probably 4 or 5 months, they're pen pals. They're just kind of communicating back and forth. Then we go into country, and these girls in the host country teach these American girls what it's like to be a girl in that country. So what it's like at school, what it's like in sports, what it's like within their religions, and also culturally with getting married really young and dropping out of school really young and not really having a voice at all. So they learn for about a week what life is like with these girls. So then we take the host country girls and these American girls, and we introduce them to change makers within that host community that are doing something to help girls or women in some way. So that could be microloans, that could be different health initiatives, that could be different education initiatives. And then we take those American girls, those host country girls, and then invite girls from all over the country. We bring them in for a leadership summit, which is about 4 or 5 days long. And during that leadership summit, we help them assess needs in their host communities and help them to think of projects to respond to those needs and help them to build the confidence to carry out a project. And by the end of that leadership summit, they have all these ideas of projects they want to do as a team as well as individually. And then for the next year, we follow them and see this ripple effect of what's going on. Domestically, we hold soccer clinics. So we take U.S. women's national players and hold these soccer clinics. But at the soccer clinics, we're telling these young girls what it's like to be a girl in these countries and kind of serve as advocates for them. And during the clinics, we play with soccer balls that are kind of similar to like a homemade banana leaf soccer ball. And then at the end of that programming, I'm getting sidetracked. Okay, so then from there, we serve as advocates for there, and then we also, that serves as a fundraising, a way for fundraising for us for the leadership summits internationally. So going back to my time at BYU, the way that my eyes were open here at BYU through my major and through some of the incredible opportunities that I was able to have here, the phrase "our world is our campus," it really is true. And these big, lofty ideas that we sometimes have, but when they come with burning hearts, people will surround and support you. And so, like Michelle was saying, whatever it is that you're studying, and as you're seeing needs and problems with that context, do something about it. And that's Goals for Girls and my journey. Thank you.
Do you have any specific questions for Jackie?
actually am, I don't know if this is on, I'm no longer a teacher. You know, when I started teaching, I taught for 3 years, I should have mentioned that. I taught for 3 years, and at that point, I will return to education, but I've always wanted to be the kind of educator that, you know, starts, get my feet on the ground, but then go out into the world, experience, do, and from that context, bring it back to the classroom later on in my career. So that's what I intend to do, so I'm no longer teaching. I run Goals for Girls full-time. So, good question, excuse me.
Tell them how you fund it.
How I fund it. So we have funding from various family foundations, but also the State Department has a pocket of funding called they have a program called the Sports United program, and they're really big with sports diplomacy right now. And so we have gotten some funding from the State Department. We've gotten some from various foundations, from Coca-Cola, Johnson & Johnson. Nike has done some stuff with us. And lots of individual donors. We have money coming from Adobe, from Microsoft. Yeah, so lots of grant writing.
Right.
Lots of grant writing.
Yeah, that's a skill, by the way.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that, Jackie. Our third panelist is Lindsay Cook, who works for the State of Utah Department of Human Services as the Utah Marriage Commission Coordinator. She's responsible for working with Utah state legislators on a daily basis to promote legislation for healthy marriages, and a number of other tasks, including finding research articles for the Marriage Commission's website. She just doesn't post the article. She has to understand them, translate them, put them down into a few sentences, and then put them up on the website. The website is called strongermarriage.org. And also works with our social media pages. I say our because I work also on the commission as the chair, the current chair of the Utah Marriage Commission, and so I work with Lindsay on almost a daily basis. She graduated from Brigham Young University in April 2015 with a bachelor's degree in family life, with an emphasis in family studies and a minor in civic engagement leadership. And Ms. Cook currently lives in Pleasant Grove, Utah with her husband of 8 months and their dog. So, Lindsay, thanks.
Thank you. Can you guys, is this on? Is it on now? Okay. As Dr. Hawkins said, my name is Lindsay Cook. I graduated in April with a major in family life, emphasis in family studies, and I did the civic engagement leadership minor. Last year was the first year that it was available. So I kind of wanted to talk to you guys a little bit more about my experience with the minor, how I came to find the minor, and my impressions about it, and how it got me to where I am now, and how I've applied it to not only my job, but also my daily life. So beginning of my senior year last fall, I had essentially finished my major, but I didn't have the credits to graduate. And so I was talking to my counselor, my advisor, and she told me I needed to find some filler classes to fill up my schedule so that I would be able to qualify for graduation come April. And she had mentioned that the Civic Engagement Leadership minor had just become available. It was the very first semester, and it was a fairly short minor, which was appealing to me because I was a senior. And so I went ahead and declared the minor, and I started that fall. And so I started with the very first class. And my very first day of class, my initial impression, as was kind of talked about by our first panelist, is that it was very political based, and that you had to have a strong interest in politics and political policy in order to have an interest in the minor. As a family studies major, I didn't have many of those interests. I had very focused interests on family life and wanting to later go into marriage family therapy and things like that, and I wasn't seeing the connection right away. There was a big disconnect between my interests and the minor. But I went ahead and I stayed in the minor, and I went through the class, and as I went through the first semester, we had a lot of guest speakers, and we had a lot of guest speakers from nonprofit organizations, and sorry, I have some notes here, just want to follow along. We had our nonprofit speakers from the community that talked about the different nonprofits that they worked in and their journeys, and it really resonated with me, and I really felt this passion about nonprofits, and that this minor could apply to me and could apply to my passions, and I could do this. I could work in the community and make all these great things happen. So what appealed to me about nonprofits is obviously they aren't about turning a profit at all, but they're dedicated to furthering and advocating for a social cause. So the following semester, I was finishing up the civic engagement minor, and I took on 2 jobs with nonprofits, one with Wasatch Mental Health, the Grand Families Program, and the other one was with another nonprofit called, oh my goodness, I'm blanking, I'm sorry. The Family Academy, sorry. So both organizations were advocating for this big social cause that was bigger and more important than me or than turning profits or than any, they were all just about people and about helping people in the community. And I realized that civic engagement starts with one individual. It starts with a single person who can lead and organize others. And inside Wasatch Mental Health and the Grand Families Program, I became that person, and I found my role within that organization. And I participated in family and community outreach. I organized and planned various events for the organization, and I recruited and led groups of volunteers throughout the following 5 months. When the time came to choose a capstone project in the civic engagement minor, I had so many different projects to choose from because I had become so engaged with the community, and I had all these different things that I was doing and all these different people and organizations I was working with without even realizing that they had this civic engagement role in them. So fast forward to today, I graduated, like I said, in April, and I have a job that involves and keeps me civically engaged every day on many different levels, some that I didn't even realize I was interested in. I was hired in September by the Utah Department of Human Services as the Utah Marriage Commission Coordinator. The Marriage Commission is made of an advisory board that consists of, we have some legislators, professors, as Dr. Hawkins said, he's the chair, and other community leaders throughout the state. Our mission is to provide research-based educational services to help form and sustain healthy relationships and enduring marriages. The Marriage Commission partners with different community agencies to provide relationship skills, education courses in the local Utah communities. We have a website and social media page, which is called strongermarriage.org. And we have the Utah Marriage Handbook, which is primarily handed out through the county clerks. When a couple goes in to get married, each couple is or should be given a Utah Marriage Handbook, and that was something that was created by the commission. And we also have family life educators that are trained throughout the state consistently each semester through the different schools that we have partnerships with. Will train educators so that they can go out into the community and actually teach these classes and provide these courses free of charge to families in the community. The Utah Marriage Commission is funded through TANF funds, which is Temporary Assistance for Needy Families. And being funded by TANF, we focus on the low-income, high-risk populations of Utah. And those are the people that we serve, and we provide all of our classes free of charge to those individuals. We have classes for engaged couples, dating couples, married, divorced, single parents, all types of courses throughout the state that apply to pretty much anyone, and we give those courses to them for free. So my specific job as the coordinator is I take care of a lot of the administrative duties with the commission. I work with our budgets and our contracts within the Department of Human Services. I'm also the sort of a liaison between the commission and the Department of Human Services, and so I go back and forth there and communicating with both sides and trying to get just different administrative things worked out. And I work with the community educators to promote and educate the public about the courses that we're providing, keeping up social media pages, talking to the community about things and different courses that they have found helpful to them, things that community leaders offer that aren't associated with the Marriage Commission but are still helpful to those individuals in the community looking for resources to help sustain their relationships. Currently, the commission is working to pass a bill to incentivize new couples to take premarital education courses. And this is sort of where the civic engagement that I didn't think I was necessarily interested in as far as legislation and working with elected officials became really important and a huge part of my job, as I have spent a lot of time recently on Capitol Hill working with legislators, and whether it's to get our funding requested or to try and get the bill passed or working with them on wording our bill. I spent a lot of time up there, and civic engagement really taught me a lot about how to speak to these elected officials and how to work with them and communicate with them, and how to become a part of that community that I didn't think I would ever have a relationship with, and I do now, and that has been very helpful. So my civic engagement minor became a huge part of my job within the community and within the political eye of the public. So through civic engagement, I really found my place as a member and potential leader of the community. And the New York Times kind of said, define civic engagement in a way that I think is very simple and straightforward, and I'm sure you guys have heard something very similar to this, but the simplicity of it really resonated with me and kind of inspired me to the future of what we can be as civic engagement leaders. They said civic engagement is working to make a difference in the civic life of our communities and developing the combination of knowledge, skills, values, and motivation to make that difference. It means promoting the quality of life in community through both political and non-political process. A morally and civically responsible individual recognizes himself or herself as a member of a larger social fabric and therefore considers social problems to be at least partly his or her own. I really like that. I like how they speak. It speaks to me personally about how these problems are not, they're on us, you know, the community and the policies, they're on us as members of this community. And so I just hope that that helped you guys a little bit realize the potential within this minor and the different things that you can do and find in yourself and in this community. And thank you for your time.
Any questions specifically for Lindsay? Okay. Then our final panelist this afternoon will be Karen McCandless, who is the Community Strategies Director and Community Action Services and Food Bank. She is a graduate of BYU with a degree in geography with a land use planning emphasis. Before working as Community Action Services, she worked in planning in both the public and private sectors. Ms. McCandless served on the Orem City Council from 2001 to 2014. Is that a record?
Mark, it is, but I think Mark Seastrand might beat me by a year once he gets to, if he finishes out his third term.
Okay. She currently serves on several boards and directors in the community. And thanks for joining us, Karen.
Thank you. I'm going to stand up because I talk with my hands. And I have a new friend, Michelle, here. I don't want to hit as I talk about this. I'm grateful to be here today, and thank you for hanging in there. I told a couple of my colleagues who are sitting here, I said, I think my panel's at 3:30. And I was an hour off, and I appreciate them. I appreciate all of you staying here. Those of you who were here with Mark Seastrand, and he talked about that letter he got with the splitting of the school district. I did not get one of those because I voted different another way than he did. But Mark is a dear friend of mine, and appreciate his service. I want to take you on a journey. As was said, I'm a geography major. I have loved maps my entire life. I don't know how to fold them, but I do love maps. I want to take you on this little trip, starting way back when I was a junior at BYU. I got my GEs done. I was taking a few classes. I did not know what to major in. I thought, oh my goodness, I've got 2 years left, and I've got to come up with a major. What do I do? And so I took a geography class, and one of the things that I was kind of interested in was in land use planning, and I had an assignment as part of this the end of semester project to do something, and I found I loved it. So I declared my major and went on my way. I thought, okay, I'm going to work in a planning office. I love the land. I love built environment. My father's a retired architect. I just love that kind of stuff. I was very, very interested in communities and how they worked. I was not interested in politics at all or anything like that. But how did the built environment interact with us individually? How did it work in neighborhoods? How did that impact how we are? So I did that, and I worked in planning and off and on, full-time, part-time. And then after I graduated, and then I moved to Orem, and I was still working part-time, and then people started coming to my house asking me different questions about different things. I kind of became like the Google before there was a Google. I don't know why people thought that I knew the answers about dinosaurs and this and that and the other thing, but what happened was people began to come to me with land use issues because my background in planning. And there was some development going on, a tremendous amount of development going on around my neighborhood. There was a huge apartment complex, some senior housing, a hospital, some different things like that were going on. And so they said, Karen, how do we work with this? How do we help? And so I knew from my experiences as a planner that this is how you communicate with elected officials, and I did that. And so that went on, and those projects, we were able to have a very good relationship with the Orem City Council and the Orem City staff, and those projects went in with a lot less impact on the neighborhood than would have originally happened. Well, fast forward a few years, I've been working in planning a little bit more and part-time, and had a couple kids, well, had another child, and husband attorney, local attorney. I was at home, and through a series of events, I still was interested in the community. I served on the board of directors for Habitat for Humanity of Utah County. And I went to Orem City, and I gave a presentation to their Community Development Block Grant Committee. Please give us some money so we can buy a lot, so we can build a house in Orem. And as I was leaving that meeting with my friend who used to be the mayor of Orem City, she said, Karen, there's a vacancy on the Orem City Council. And I said, oh yeah. She said, we need to think of good women who could apply for that vacancy. And I said, oh, okay, I'll think, I'll think of some names or whatever. And she said, well, what about Karen? And I said, Karen who? She said, Karen you. And she points at me and she says, think about it. And I'm like, holy smokes, I worked in planning. I know how that horrible, messy election process and political process is. There is no way that I would ever do that, ever. Because I've spent hundreds of hours on the other side of the dais, being a staff member and being part of involving community. I think, no way. Anyway, long story short, I was appointed, and I put my name in, was appointed, and then ran 3 times, and served for a total of 13 years, and I loved it. I love the community. And so that happened, and then near the end of my city council service, I focused solely on that. I was not working in any other way, but I became civically engaged in a way that I did not anticipate. I was like, no way I was going to do that. But I found that my city council experience was enhanced because I did have that planning degree. So much of what a city council does has to be with city planning. You think about the things that people hold dear, their children, their property, their homes, their health, all these different things, and it all intermeshes in with planning and how a community builds out. Whether streets or speed limits, arterial streets, collector streets, neighborhood streets, apartment complexes, open space, all these different things all come together to help make a community healthy. So that was really great, because that gave me, when I ran for office, people say, oh yeah, you've got a degree in planning. Yeah. You understand this stuff, or they thought I did, really. But what happened was, I remember one of my council members, and it was a very contentious issue on the city council, and he would look at me and he said, Karen, tell us, what do you think? You're the planner. And I'm like, holy smokes. I'll tell you what I think as personally, but I don't want to tell you what the other, how to vote. So it was good because I was able to apply that planning degree in a different way. I had a lot of sympathy for the staff, and really, really appreciated what they did. Well, as I was on the city council, I began to see some other things happening. I saw not only the built environment and was interested in that, but I began to become more familiar with nonprofit organizations in the community. I thought, oh, no, this is very interesting. One of particular interest to me was community action services and food bank. We at Community Action, we do family stabilization, and then we also do what we say moving people out of poverty, or help them support them as they move out of poverty. So everything from the food bank, if you've been there, you've seen the food pantry, food bank, rent assistance, some homeless assistance, and then I work in advocacy, bridges out of poverty, long-term systemic barrier removal, that kind of thing, Circles Initiative, and with the AmeriCorps Vista program. So that's what I work with now, but I wasn't working there then. At the end, toward 2012, my husband died very suddenly, and so I was a widow and in my 40s. And so to those of you, I'm going to say, some people may come in, I don't know, I'm guessing that by the sake that you're here, maybe not be this way, but you know what? Especially the women, finish school, stay connected to what your profession is, because you never know what's going to happen. And so I thought, oh man, I haven't had a full-time job in 20 years. What am I going to do? So I took some time and thought about what I really, really liked. I thought I can go back into planning. I like that. I worked for developers. I've worked with I like that, but then what was happening at that time is the economy was down, and it was a lot of the types of planning jobs were not for my kind of experience. Because I had been a planning director, I had been in other types of planning, and it was not what I didn't want to do the kinds of jobs that were out there. Well, this came along, this opportunity, this position was created at Community Action, and I thought, you know what? I want to do this because not only was I interested in that built environment, but I'm interested in that people environment. How does economic class play into the planning of a community? So I'm thinking the one issue that I'm just very passionate about is housing, for example. And that I'm able to do that from both the planning background that I have and the city council background, and from this other sociology side as well. So in conclusion, that's how I ended up here today. I'm on a path that I never imagined, went back all those years ago when I was at BYU, and here, and thinking I want to do planning. And it's a path, I said, it had some very unexpected things in it, but I love it. It's what I want to do, it's my passion. And just to sum up here, one thing I've decided to do as part of an extension of what I do at Community Action is right now I'm training to become a chaplain. And I do that training at Utah Valley Hospital. And I remember talking to one of the nurses, and he said, well, what do you do to become a chaplain? Or how did you end up here? I said, well, my degree's in land use planning. Can't you see the connection? I can tell you the connection. Can't you just see it? And he's like, no. So what I've done with you today, I hope, is taking you on that journey, on that map, how that degree in planning has taken me to these different places that may not be as what I expected, destinations that I thought would be, but they've happened, and they are, and I love them. So three things, very, very quickly. Find your passion. Volunteer in some different things. I know maybe you want to do all the things, but find what you like to do and stick with that. Look beyond the obvious in your major. What skills do you bring? What does your major teach you to do? My major taught me really how to think. I can look at that microphone and look at it this way and think one thing about it. And I can look at it this way and look at it different angles. And finally, do not underestimate yourself. You know what? If you've got a passion to do something, go for it. If it scares you to death, go for it. And in fact, I just put a meme on my Facebook page yesterday that had a goldfish with a shark fin strapped to him, and it said, be brave, even if you have to pretend to be brave. So I appreciate the opportunity to take you on my little journey with me, and I'll close. Thank you.
Thank you. Question specifically for Karen. Okay, then we would open it up for broader questions, if you also have them to be directed to all of the panelists. Questions that come to your mind listening to these panelists. Please.
even look for opportunities to do an hour to a month. There are, market yourself, look for things that you're interested in, and then find ways. You can build a resume an hour at a time. That's what I would say. And look at those opportunities as part of your education. Do your job, like flip burgers if you have to. This is what I like to say, flip burgers if you have to, but think of your internship as part of your education.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. I think that's still on. Sometimes maybe even be bold in asking if there's a certain employer that you have got your eyes on and you know that they only offer, unpaid internships. Sit with someone that's higher in power and just say, I just want to pick your brain, and really help them to see where you're coming from in your heart and your desires, and maybe even challenge them, say, hey, here's the predicament I'm in. Is there any, even little side work that I could do for a little, just create whatever, I don't know. Just use your imagination and be bold in asking questions that might be a little out there. I've had lots of people come to me for similar situations of, hey, Goals for Girls is so cool, I want to get involved, but, we don't have the funding to bring on people. But when I see that type of mentality, I'm like, oh man, you're going places. All right, we're going to create something. I don't know. Just use your imagination, try to be bold in your asking as well.
To say that Jackie summed up a little bit of what I was thinking as well, is even if you don't have time to provide an unpaid internship, go and talk to people. Relationships are key. When the time comes when you do graduate, especially if you're going to stay in this area, having those relationships and connections with those individuals or companies that you may be interested in working for later are extremely helpful.
Thank you. There was another question, please.
I would say great. That's great that you found something that you
Did
just love.
everybody hear the question?
Everyone here. She likes her job more than she likes her school stuff right now because that's a very basic summation. It's just how do you tie in school with the work? Maybe make a game for yourself. What you're in those classes that you're taking, really kind of go on a scavenger hunt and look for the things in those classes that you're in right now and see, okay, with my job that I love, what is there in this that I can pull, or I can take, or I can change somehow, or morph it into something that would be helpful with my job. So that way what you're doing is you're thinking about school differently, you're thinking about your job differently, and you may come up with this amazing idea that no one's come up with before.
Out of curiosity, are they the same field? And is it a part-time job or full-time? Part-time job. And is this job something that can turn into a full-time job after you graduate? You're sitting in a good place. That's awesome. So just muscle through school, I guess. Muscle through and...
One of the things I wanted to say, and when you get up here, you kind of forget some of the things you want to say, but education really is a vehicle. It's not the end goal. And so don't be too wedded to this process, even though it's so important. My education had a huge impact in where I am now, but I couldn't have predicted what I'm doing now back then. And so it really is a springboard. Take the general skills that you're learning and everything, but it sounds to me like you're already well on your way. So just give it what you got.
But graduate. Yeah.
But graduate, for sure.
We just live in a society in which that piece of paper really does mean something.
It does.
I want to piggyback off of your comment too. My senior year, my winter semester of my senior year, I had 4 jobs, and I was a full-time student, and I definitely would have rather been working than in school. But I can say that with the connections I made with my professors, Dr. Hawkins being a professor that I had, and also who I work with now, a colleague, that those connections that I made and things that I learned are valued so much in the workplace now. And as Dr. Hawkins said, just push through it, get the degree, it's worth it, and you're gonna need it. So it's just a means to the ends right now, but.
I have a thought. The question was how to network and how to be able to leverage those relationships. Networking is one of my passions, so that's why I'm going to jump. That's one of the things I learned in business school, and I just want to say 2 things. Just talk to everybody. It's kind of like when I was a missionary and I'd sit down on the bus and I was really kind of tired and I didn't want to talk to somebody and I made myself do it. Do that. Come to these events. Take it. In fact, Rachel, to your question, take advantage of the opportunities like you are here. That BYU does so much to give you opportunities to connect with people. Take it seriously. Buy yourself a business card holder and write down, take pictures, like help yourself remember who these people are. The other piece of that, and it counters a part of what you asked, but I feel very strongly about. Think about what you could do for them. You may be able to be a bridge for 2 people that you met who would never meet each other otherwise. So always be thinking as you're processing these networks, who could help someone that you met so that you become a contributor to the process instead of just a consumer. And for me, that makes networking fun and a service, not just work. Does that make sense? Really thinking about it in terms of the people and making it something that you can do with your heart instead of just another thing that you have to do. And then for me, it makes those relationships come alive more and makes the people mean more, and it helps me remember them more too, so that when the time comes that maybe they will cross my path or I need to reach out to them, they know that I'm not just taking advantage of them, or they can feel that I care about them too. People can sense that.
And have a really good memory. And if you don't, take notes. When I campaigned, I would have notes about if I met somebody, and I would remember that they told me that they grew up in North Dakota and that they were concerned about their sewer line. I would go and I would actually because I've shifted, I kind of do both. I do the paper and the electronic, but I would make notes. So what happened would be is I talked to them, and then I'd see them later. Oh yes, oh you're the son. Oh yeah, how have you been back to visit your family in North Dakota lately or whatever? Oh, Karen, you remembered that. It's like, well, with a little help, but yeah, but yes, showing what your value to them, because that's an establishing. The key is that relationship, developing some sort of tie, and make it genuine. Because I've talked to people, especially when I was on the city council, who made a connection. They were talking to me because somebody else wasn't available to talk to them. I knew it. You could just feel that vibe. It's like, okay, I'm the last resort. And so, but making that a genuine interest that you want to learn about them and that you have something to offer them as well.
Well, if there are no last second questions, then let's thank our panelists, and we are done.